Good morning, everyone, and I'm not sure whether to label this budget bracket busting or whether to label this Mad Meta Magic, so whatever series you see above the video is what I settled on by the end of it, but this deck is only 82 tickets, and I saw MTG Goldfish post a tweet about it, and it's Manaless Affinity. So the idea with this deck is you try and keep a hand that has a Sanctum of Ugin and one of your 7 drops, and you always want to be on the draw because that gives you the most amount of cards to work with. And then on turn 1, you just play your whole hand, and then you put like 11 power into play, and hopefully that's enough to win because most of your threats are at least like bolt and push proof in the form of your actual 7 drops. So we're gonna see what happens. I have no idea if this deck is good, if this deck is bad. In theory, it looks pretty sweet, and there hasn't been a legitimate Affinity deck in a very long time, and I say legitimate Affinity deck because even Affinity with Mox Opal, wasn't actually playing all that many cards with the word Affinity on it. It was more of a, like, Vault Scourge, cranial plating, accelerated deck with Moxes, but we're actually playing just about every single card that has the word Affinity on it, so let's see what happens. I'm going to take this into a constructed league. I think I have enough. I do not. All right, one moment. Alrighty, here we go. I will see you all in round 1. Alrighty, round 1, here we go. And remember, if we get the opportunity, we want to go second. I'm saying that now because, okay, we do not want to play first, we want to go second. So I'm sure my opponent is very confused. We don't have, let's see. We do not have any, we don't have the land. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 0 drops, which would make Mirror Enforcer cost 2. In theory, we draw another artifact, so Mirror Enforcer would cost 1. Do we keep this? We can't actually play our... Let me look at this really quick. Because if we mulligan, in theory, we're just stripping ourselves of another artifact we could play. I'm going to try going to 6 here. This might be incorrect. Okay. This looks actually keepable. So we're going to put back a Tooth of Chisgoria, and we'll see what our opponent does. We're going to play 5 mana 3/3 on turn 1, and then probably crack some baubles. Alright, we untap. We draw Frogmite. So Ornithopter, Ornithopter, Bauble, Bauble, Tooth, Frogmite, Foundry Assembler. Let's go! And I think we do crack this Mishra's Bauble to draw an extra card. Because in theory we could draw like a 0 mana artifact or a Sanctum of Ugin and then a 7 drop. So my opponent plays a Flooded Strand and passes. Fat lot of good all those counter spells are going to do you. So opponent is drawing a Field of the Dead. We untap, we draw... What do we draw here? On our upkeep from the Bauble, we get Briber's Purse. And then we draw a Mirror Enforcer. So go to combat. Attack for... You know what? We're going to attack like this. Opponent is going to bolt Foundry Assembler. So we're going to pump the Ornithopter. Problem with this is I did not play the Mirror Enforcer, so I actually made a mistake. I should have played out the Briber's Purse and then played out Mirror Enforcer. So play out Briber's Purse. Opponent takes 3. Pass the turn. Opponent cracks Flooded Strand. Gets a Triome. They untap. They draw Field of the Dead. Opponent plays a Windswept Teeth. Passes. I don't want to crack this Bauble, because unless I draw 2 0-mana artifacts, it's not going to work. We untap. We draw Bonesaw. Play Bonesaw. Play Mirror Enforcer. Alright, go to combat. Attack here and here. We will use Tooth to pump an Ornithopter. Opponent will take 3. They go to 13. And now I can crack Bauble on my opponent's turn. If they have a Path to Exile, that's pretty bad. But, I mean, we've kind of hit the critical mass of artifacts now, so... Yep, we have no basics. Alright, pass the turn. Opponent plays a Prismatic Vista. They crack Prismatic Vista, they go to 11. They get a Forest, so this looks like an Omnath. Oh, it's a Growth Spiral, okay. They put a Scalding Tarn into play. Crack Bauble. They're drawing an Hour of Promise. Unless they crack Scalding Tarn. So we draw a Frogmite and a Paradise Mantle. Play Paradise Mantle. Go to combat. Attack for 3. Opponent goes down to 8. Play Frogmite. I mean, unless they play Omnath and get a whole bunch of landfall triggers to like gain a bunch of life, we seem to be doing okay. Okay, opponent plays a Plains. So they drew the Hour of Promise. They cast Hour of Promise. So they're going to get Field of the Dead here, and we can no longer hit them on the ground. We don't have any mana to have cast Briber's Purse, so we can't stop the zombies from attacking. We also know our opponent is holding at least one Field of the Dead. But that worked out. That was pretty close. Like, our opponent, we got down to 8. So because our opponent's playing Path, we have to bring in a Wastes next game, for sure. Okay, opponent gets some zombies. We untap. Draw Sanctum of Ugin. So play Sanctum. We can Paradise Mantle, suit up a Frogmite. Use Frogmite to equip a Bonesaw to an Ornithopter. Go to combat. Attack here and here. Use Tooth to pump this Ornithopter and kind of just spread out the damage a little bit. Opponent takes 2 and goes to 6. It is unlikely we win this game, but it is not impossible. If we draw a Mirror Enforcer, we can play a couple of Mirror Enforcers and maybe have enough blockers. Because we can Sanctum of Ugin for the other Mirror Enforcer. Alright, opponent untaps. They play Polluted Delta, so my opponent is going to get a ridiculous number of zombies. They attack for 4, no blocks. Well, they attack for 8, I mean, we'll take 8, go to 12. Untap. We draw a Foundry Assembler. So, play Foundry Assembler, tapping cards that don't matter here. We have to pay 1 more. Tap a Frogmite. Go to combat. Attack for 2 in the air. Take our opponent to 4. They're getting to the point that they may not be able to crack these polluted, like, their fetch lands. Although their fetch lands might actually just give them enough zombies to kill us here. Alright, opponent cracks Scalding Tarn. Gets a Mystic Sanctuary. Putting Lightning Bolt on top. Yeah, I think they got us. But oh well. This was fun. Like, we got our opponent very close to dead. And with a slightly different hand, we probably could have actually gotten there. Okay, they fetch up a Steam Vents tapped. We get some zombies. So they shuffled away the Lightning Bolt. Yep. I don't think I missed any damage. I think I just got... Alright, opponent plays Big Teferi. They tuck a Frogmite. Alright, so we're going to take 18 damage. Drat. We got our opponent to 2. Cool. So, versus Uro, Omnath, nonsense. We need a Wastes, which means I need to cut a card that does not matter as much. I think it's a Foundry Assembler for that. I don't think we need Leyline. I think Leyline is strictly versus Dredge. Leyline of Sanctity might be like a burn consideration, but it's not going to matter here. So we're going to bring in the Waste simply to get around the first path, hopefully. And Foundry Assembler just being our most awkward payoff. It doesn't enable Sanctum of Ugin. It's like an okay beater, but it's not as good as our other ones. I'd like to play first. I can keep this. Oh, I shouldn't have played first. I should have actually drawn, but we have double Welding Jar at least. Well, now I'm pretty sure I have to keep this because I said I'm going to go first. So, Bonesaw, Welding Jar, Ornithopter, Welding Jar, Tooth, and then Foundry Assembler. Pass the turn. So, we're immune to a Lightning Bolt, but we are not immune to Path. Path still gets us. If my opponent does Path, the very minimum we can suit up with a Bonesaw. We untap, we draw Mirror Enforcer, play Enforcer, go to combat, attack, power up the Ornithopter, hit our opponent for 4, pass the turn, opponent cracks Flooded Strand, hits a Raugrin Triome, they untap. We really only get wrecked by Path here. Engineered explosives on 0, we can keep around a couple of the artifacts that matter because of welding jar. That's not actually that bad. Cracking it on our turn means that, and they should do it on our upkeep, yeah. Okay. So we save Ornithopter and we save Bonesaw. We lose a Bonesaw here. Those get regenerated. We draw another Tooth, which we can play for free. Go to combat. Attack our opponent for 9. Hit them down to 6. This is promising. I mean, like, if they have a path and a bolt, we're probably just dead in the water, but... opponent plays Scalding Tarn. Cracks Scalding Tarn, goes to 5. Gets an island. Plays an Uro. They go back up to 8, but we have 9 power in play. So they have to put in a land and have removal. And they don't. So... lethal? Did we get there? Manaless Affinity? Beating Uro? Draw Paradise Mantle. Go to combat. Attack, attack. Power up here. Power up here. Lethal? We did it! Oh, this deck's awesome. Man, maybe I shouldn't have cut Foundry Assembler. Maybe I need to cut like a scale or something. We have to be aware because of engineered explosives. I think my opponent tried to... they kept that hand solely based on engineered explosives, and I don't think it was good enough. Maybe we cut Briber's Purse. I don't want to cut a lot of 0-mana artifacts, but I think cutting the Foundry Assembler was wrong. And not just because of its performance, but in the last game, because... I mean, if my opponent wants to play first, that's fine with us. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... Yeah, okay, we're keeping this. We're keeping this because it's a turn 1 Mirror Enforcer. Opponent starts Scalding Tarn. We untap. We draw Briber's Purse. So, start Welding Jar, Bonesaw, Briber's Purse, Paradise Mantle, Ornithopter, Tooth, Mirror Enforcer. The old 8 cards on turn 1 play. That's pretty good, I hear. Alright. Opponent fetches with Scalding Tarn. I mean, if they get a white sword, like a Hollowed Fountain, and then they path us here, it's bad, because that's basically all of our competitive advantage gone, but... I mean, it's still cool to play your entire hand on turn 1. Alright, opponent plays Windswept Heath, and they pass. We untap. We draw Tormod's Crypt. So I'm going to play Tormod's Crypt. Go to combat. Attack here and here. We will use Tooth to pump an Ornithopter. It does open us up to losing 1 damage to a Lightning Bolt. But I think that's okay. Because we were trying to protect ourselves from Path. Opponent fetches with Windswept Heath. It's a Raugrin Triome. They untap. Man, if we could find a way to get, like a Cranial Plating in this deck, I think it would be really good. I don't know how we would do it, but if we could. Alright, opponent plays Teferi Time Raveler. They're going to unsummon Mirror Enforcer. If we top deck Sanctum of Ugin, that is amazing, actually. Okay, we untap. We draw Barricade. So play Mirror Enforcer. Play Barricade Breaker, tapping all of the stuff that isn't Tooth and 1 other card. I don't think we actually attack Teferi. I think we just continue to go straight for face. Go to combat. Attack our opponent. Tooth it up. Oh, man. This deck's awesome. I really hope we win, because we're so close. Like, if my opponent has Supreme Verdict here, it's just game over, but... Actually, is it? If my opponent had Supreme Verdict here, we could regenerate Barricade Breaker. Okay, they uptick to Fairy. We do have lethal. We have 11 damage on board right now. Opponent plays Ghost Quarter. Haha, opponent! I've played around your Ghost Quarter by not playing any lands. So, I think this is going to be a Cryptic tap, or like a Cryptic unsummon. Okay, we draw a Briber's Purse. Go to combat. So, I think it's a Cryptic tap. It might be a tap bounce, to see if we can pay for like a Barricade Breaker Improvise again. Let me see. Show game log. Okay, they're bouncing, but the textless promo doesn't let me see the other mode they chose, which is really annoying. Okay, so we have to pass through combat to our second main. Play a Briber's Purse. And then we can play our Barricade Breaker again. Pass the turn. Oh, man. Landless deck in Modern? Move over, oops, all spells. Okay. Opponent plays Uro. Uro gains them 3 life. They get to draw a card and put a Flooded Strand into play. Okay. So they sack Uro. If we get the ability to untap, we're going to crack Tormod's Crypt in response to them cracking Flooded Strand because we do not want them redrawing Cryptic Command potentially. We're also going to send an Ornithopter and 1 damage at Teferi because the unsummon now matters. Okay, opponent plays a Steam Vents. Tapped. They can't afford to lose any more life. My apologies if you can hear my mom. She's talking very excitedly on the phone all the way across the house and is practically yelling into the phone for unknown reasons. Alright. So opponent is passing. We have a total of 12 damage, which is not enough to kill our opponent. Unless they were to crack Flooded Strand and we drew like a tooth here. That is not what happened. So we play Briber's Purse. I guess I should start holding 0 mana artifacts in hand. I shouldn't have played this out if my opponent had another Engineered Explosives. Go to combat, and we attack our opponent, Teferi, and Teferi. Tooth up an Ornithopter. Okay. We hit our opponent down to 3. So now we pass. The instant our opponent cracks this Flooded Strand is when we crack Tormod's Crypt. Or they put another card in graveyard, I should say. They actually can't get green mana off of Flooded Strand. I suppose if they Ghost Quarter themselves, I would have to Tormod's Crypt as well. Because we can't let them replay Uro. That's just not gonna fly. Opponent red-green. Changes their mind. They play Omnath. Okay, they get a draw. So fetching gains them 3 life up to 6. They play Field of the Dead. So they gain 4 life, they get a zombie. Oh man, we were so close. I think we just slightly aren't going to cut it here. Alright, opponent is passing. If we could get a Scale of Chiskora, we could keep Mirror Enforcer alive and force our opponent to... Well, no, we can't force them to block with Omnath. We untap. We draw Scale. So, play out the Scale. Opponent saved the Flooded Strand crack because they didn't need the extra mana on their turn. They wanted to use the extra mana on our turn, or the extra landfall trigger to gain 4 life on our turn. So, attack our opponent, attack Teferi, attack Teferi. So let's see what they do. I'm 99.9% sure they can get through this, but at least Scale makes the combat math harder. We can if they were to like double block, we could just regenerate. If they were to double block on Barricade Breaker, and then they would lose Omnath and the zombie. If my opponent does not crack Flooded Strand on our turn for whatever reason, we Tormod's Crypt in response to, we Tormod's Crypt on their draw step. If at any point they crack Flooded Strand, that's when we activate Tormod's Crypt. Opponent is thinking really hard about this. Okay. Tormod's Crypt. Flooded Strand gets them 4 life and a zombie. I guess I should have let them get Mystic Sanctuary, maybe, but... Let's see how they block. They double block Mirror Enforcer, and they're just going to take the 7. Okay, in that case... Scale to increase the defense here. Tooth to do a damage to Teferi. And then deal 7 to our opponent and take them to 3. Okay. Pass the turn. We still have access to Welding Jar, which is important. I'm kind of surprised my opponent didn't Ghost Quarter themselves. Oh, actually, that would have taken them off 7 lands, so never mind. I'm not surprised at all. Okay, opponent plays another Field of the Dead. They get 2 blockers. They uptick Teferi to 3 again. And they attack us for 4. Sure, nothing we can do about that. We go down to 16. Okay, we untap. We draw a Welding Jar. Okay, that matters. So play Welding Jar. go to combat, attack our opponent, to fairy, and to fairy. It really sucks that like we didn't have a land to put a counter on Briber's Purse. Okay, opponent growth spirals. They put a fetch land into play, so they're just going to make too many zombies. We were so close. So close to winning this. The top deck of the format, too. And, like, we didn't have our best hand, either. Because our best hand is, like, double Mirror Enforcer turn 1. And, like, I'm okay with our deck needing the best hand it can have to beat the top deck of the format. I think that's reasonable. Especially for a deck that costs so little and is so janky. So I'm not, like, upset. And I can see that this deck would have a lot of power versus other decks. Because, like, our main threats aren't pushable. You know, we're immune to hand hate. Like, so... Okay, opponent fetches up a Temple Garden. They get more zombies. They get a bunch of mana. I actually kind of want, like, what is it called? Leyline of Punishment? The players can't gain life one. I think that would be really, really cool here. Because, like, the only reason our opponent beat us at all, even stood a chance, is because they gained, like, something like 12 life. And if we just, like, Leyline of Punishment in our opener, you can't gain life, how do they beat that? That might be better than Leyline of Sanctity. Like, Leyline of Sanctity I can see as, like, an anti-burn sort of situation. And maybe I just don't understand this deck enough yet. But I think Leyline of Sanctity should actually be Leyline of Punishment. And let me double check that it's Leyline of Punishment I'm thinking of, because it's not Leyline of Lightning. Opponent Ghost Quarters themselves. Yeah, players can't gain life and damage can't be prevented. I think that turns off Welding Jar, but it's not that big of a deal. So now my opponent has 2 blockers and enough damage to kill us on the backswing. That sucks. But we made it to turn 7 against Uro Omnath, and we even beat them in a game. So, like, for a budget deck, especially one this cool, I am not the least bit concerned with its performance right now. Yeah, we'll tooth it, but it's game over, unfortunately. Still, super cool. And I'll see you guys in round 2. I'm excited to see what else this deck can do. Alrighty, round 2. I just sneezed like 6 times, and I might need to sneeze again. I am unclear. So we want to be on the draw. We will keep this. This is a turn 1 Barricade Breaker into a potential Mirror Enforcer as well. The only way that it isn't is if we draw another Sanctum. So we get a Paradise Mantle, play Ornithopter, play Tormod's Crypt, play Briber's Purse, play Bonesaw, play Mishra's Bauble, play Paradise Mantle, play Sanctum, play Barricade Breaker, sacking Sanctum of Ugin, getting a Mirror Enforcer, play Mirror Enforcer. Pass the turn. Alright. Casual turn 1, 11 power. Did my opponent respond to that? Opponent says, say hi to Twitter. Oh shoot, I'm in the wrong spot. I can't lean out of the way here. Opponent says, say hi to Twitter. And I said, at Kano Yagoro, tag me. Oh, that's pretty great. Alright. Let's see if that actually shows up. Okay, opponent plays Seachrome Coast into a Pentad Prism. Alright, well they could just have like the turn 3 combo off. We untap. We draw... What do we draw here? My phone is going super slow. Okay, we draw a Tooth of Chisagora. Opponent says done. So play the Tooth, go to combat, attack for 12. Pass the turn. Let me pull up Twitter here. How do I... Opponent conceded! Okay, hang on. We're retweeting this. And I'm gonna say, who would do such a thing? Alright. Yep, that's happening. Oh, yeah. It's pretty great. Okay, we're going to game 2 here? I guess. How do I get a link to a tweet? I need to share this with the Discord. Cool. Alright, what am I against? Ad nauseum? Yeah, run it back. I'm proud. That's Kano pride worthy right there. Oh man. And their hand was land, 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 spoils, spoils. So they could have potentially spoils for like Angel's Grace, but they did not have enough to like actually deal with the combo. That's really impressive. So the question is, do we mulligan this? And I think the answer is yes, I can mulligan once. Ooh, this is not good. Hang on. We have 1, 2. I need another 0 mana artifact for this to work. And this is very slow. I don't think I can mulligan again, though. We're pretty much guaranteed to draw 0 mana artifacts. Opponent also mulliganed, which is good news for us. Okay, opponent starts Serum Visions. Mardu Scout slash at ManosMin on Twitter. Thank you for being a good sport. That's pretty good. Okay, we draw Bauble, which I think is just enough to get this hand to work. So play Bonesaw, play Memnite, play Bauble, play Tooth, play Frogmite, and then play Foundry Assembler. Pass the turn. So this is not the ideal hand, but if we draw another 0 mana artifact, we can play Barricade Breaker. It's a Mirror Enforcer, which unfortunately does not quite work. So go to combat. Attack for 7. Ah, Twitter. How do I respond to this? Bone Daddy, how dare you accuse me of playing Tron right now? Okay. So we hit our opponent for a lot. Pass the turn. Bauble them on their upkeep. They're drawing Lightning Storm, which is probably good news for us. Actually, that could be really bad news for us if they just Lightning Storm. They have Phyrexian Unlife. We untap. We draw Frogmite and Scale. So play Scale, play Frogmite, play Mirror Enforcer, and then we play Barricade Breaker. Problem is, my opponent is at minimum like 3 turns from dead. Okay, they don't seem to have the combo right now, which is good. They're gonna dig for it, which does give us an opportunity to win. They play Thassa's Oracle for a blocker. Okay. They suspend a Lotus Bloom, so they're holding Lightning Storm, 1 unknown. Play another Mirror Enforcer. We cannot equip Bonesaw. Go to combat. Attack with everybody. Put damage on something unblocked. Take our opponent to -10. They have this turn to combo off, or we beat them. If they cast... Oh my gosh, we did it! We did it! Manaless Affinity, take it down ad nauseum. Don't think we're favored. Alright, round 3, here we go. Okay, that's enough tweeting. Unfortunately, no 7-drop. If this hand had a 7-drop, it would be the hand. So I'm going to try mulliganing here. Okay. I'm going to keep this, and I'm going to put back Scale. Because Scale is not as important for the, like, Crazy Nuts opener. Okay, they start with a Wooded Foothills. So we play Bauble, Crypt, Thopter, Memnite, Tooth, Scale. Pass the turn, and we are going to crack Bauble on our opponent's upkeep. Just in case they have discard, I don't want them to be able to make us discard too quickly here. Okay, opponent reveals Stomping Ground. So they're drawing a Stomping Ground this turn. They play Stomping Ground tapped. Pass. You know, I guess we're getting around all the Blood Moon shenanigans. Okay, we draw Paradise Mantle and a Briber's Purse. Play Paradise Mantle, play Briber's Purse. Is this opponent trying to talk to me too? No? Okay. Alright, go to combat, and we will attack for 2. Unfortunately, we do not have one of our major payoffs, and we're kind of out of action here. Okay, opponent cracks Wooded Foothills. Gets a Stomping Ground tapped, so my opponent is taking as little damage as possible here. The cool thing is, if this hand works out for us, like if we somehow do make it without having one of our gigantic payoffs, and we win this race, my opponent may side in like Anger of the Gods, which does not beat Mirror Enforcer or the other big one. Opponent pitches Blood Moon and Stomping Ground. We draw another Paradise Mantle, play it out. Problem is they have Dark Clock by virtue of playing a single creature. 17 turn clock, go. Hit them for 1. Pass the turn. Maybe we should have kept the initial hand in the opener, because keeping that hand gives us a decent chance of drawing a 7-drop, and then we have the land for equipping Bone Saws and Paradise Mantles and stuff. Okay. The cool thing is, if my opponent kept a handful of Stone Rains, they don't do anything. Pillage would, but Stone Rain does not. Opponent plays a Utopia Sprawl. Name's red. 4 mana, they Bloodbraid Elf into a Seasoned Pyromancer. Opponent discards Scavenging Ooze and a Mountain into a Bloodbraid Elf. Let's see. Opponent is going to start attacking. So we block with an Ornithopter, pump the toughness, prevent the damage because that's free. We untap, we draw a Bauble, play Bauble, go to combat, attack with Ornithopter, pump it with Tooth, hit our opponent down to 14. The problem is, like, our Barricade Breakers and stuff do not have Trample, and now my opponent has gone pretty wide. So I think we've lost. Alright, there's a Chandra. They're going to Torch of Defiance Chandra. Let's look at the top card of their deck. It's a Blood Moon. Okay, Ornithopter goes away. My opponent can attack me for 7 here. They don't. Interesting. We untap. We draw a Welding Jar and a Briber's Purse. Play Welding Jar. I'm going to hold Briber's Purse because there's a chance that maybe we need to play it with 1 mana if I top deck a land. Okay, no, that's game. Cool. That works for me. So let's have a much better hand next time. I don't think we need the wastes. Marrow Shard's probably not going to be relevant. Neither is Leyline or Leyline. So run it back. Maybe... are there any other ley lines that would be useful? Like Leyline of Life Force, maybe? Let me see. Leyline of Life Force. Creature spells can't be countered. That's not the other one. Leyline of Vitality, I think. Is that the one I'm thinking of? Creatures you control get +0/+1. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may gain 1 life. Maybe. Okay. I chose to play first, which was incorrect. Crap, and I kept a hand with 2 of the 7-drops. So we actually have to wait a turn to play out anything. So we're just going to F6. Oh, this is so bad. Like, alright, opponent starts Windswept Heath, doesn't crack it. We draw Bauble. So play Crypt, Bauble. 1, 2, 3. We could go up to 6. We're going to wait for 1 turn. Hopefully my opponent does not have an Abrade. Opponent cracks Windswept Heath. It's a Stomping Ground tapped. They untap. In theory, Bauble draws us a 0-mana artifact, and we can at least get down a Scale. Play Scale, and then I'm going to Bauble them on their upkeep. I want to see what they're drawing this turn. I misclicked and kept the wrong hand, so opponent drew a Braid. That's ultra bad for us, because it kills like our giant artifact payoffs. Opponent plays a Windswept Heath and passes. So play another Scale. We untap. Mishra's Bauble draws us a Mirror Enforcer and an Ornithopter. Crap. We are 1 artifact away still. So we're going to pass. My opponent shouldn't Abrade because none of these artifacts are any amount of threat to them. They untap. They play a Wooded Foothills. They crack Wooded Foothills for a Mountain and then are passing. So they're leaving up Abrade mana. We untap. Oh my gosh, holy 7-drops, Batman. Pass the turn. Well, the cool thing is we're going to be able to play a lot of 7-drops, even through a single Abrade. But we need 1 more. 1 more free artifact here. Okay, opponent plays a Stomping Ground. They're tapping out for Chandra. They should uptick for damage here, I think. Yep. They exile Bloodbraid, which they cannot cast, which means they can't Abrade on our turn, meaning we need to draw a 0-drop right now. There it is. Play Paradise Mantle. Play Ornithopter. Play Memnite. Enforcer. Barricade Breaker. Pass the turn. That was a lot of power on the board. But now my opponent has, like, they have a Braid, they can downtick Chandra. I kept up the Scales to get around the downtick for Mirror Enforcers. Hopefully that matters. And hopefully we keep enough stuff that we can cast a Barricade Breaker next turn. I mean, no guarantee on that one. So we'll just scale that up. +0/+1. Make them waste that down tick. And they're going to stomp it. Alright? There's one Mirror Enforcer down. And they have an Abrade, so they can kill at least one other thing. We untap. We draw Bonesaw. So play Bonesaw. Go to combat. Attack our opponent. Attack our opponent. Attack Chandra. Opponent should Abrade probably the Barricade Breaker. They're just going to take it? Really? You have an Abrade, right? Okay, they are going to Abrade. I was really concerned there for a second. I was like, there's no reason to take 7 damage, opponent. So Chandra goes down to 1. Don't Lightning Bolt the Ornithopter. Okay, cool. Perfect. Opponent takes 4, goes to 11. We go to our second main and play another Barricade Breaker. Nice. Pass the turn. Okay, they have a Lightning Bolt and another Stomp to kill the Barricade Breaker, which is so heartbreaking. They uptick for mana, and then they're going to be able to play a Bone Crusher Giant. No, they play a Klothys, actually. Well, Klothys can gain them some life, which is unfortunate for us. Okay, we untap. We draw another Barricade Breaker. So, go to combat. Kill Chandra. Because we don't want our opponent drawing more cards than we can deal with. I was kind of thinking about leaving up Tormod's Crypt here. We're just drawing all of our top end. Like, it's pretty good. If you just always draw the card you need when you need it, how can you lose? So opponent exiles Barricade Breaker, drains us for 2. They draw Verdant. They crack Verdant, so they can play both Bone Crushers here. Okay. They have to double block if they want to kill something, though, which is pretty dandy. We draw Bonesaw, go to combat, attack our opponent, attack our opponent. Like, they're not in a good place here, which is awesome. Okay, so they double block Mirror Enforcer. Unfortunately, we don't have any Tooth of Chiskora, so we can't, Oh, I actually needed to keep both of those alive, I think. Okay. Play a Bonesaw. Pass the turn. And if my opponent targets something in my graveyard, we exile our graveyard. If they target something in their graveyard, we exile their graveyard. So they draw a card. Klothys targets us. Crypt ourself. Klothys does nothing. They draw Wooded Foothills. They crack Wooded Foothills for a mountain. We untap. If they brick one more turn, we should have them. Foundry Assembler. So go to combat. Attack our opponent, because we have to. Opponent has to chump. And then we play a Foundry Assembler like this. So we have Scale to survive, have Foundry Assembler survive through a Lightning Bolt and Tormod's Crypt for our opponent's Klothys target. And we're not doing this on our upkeep because, yes! We got there! We won a game! This deck has some game! I like it. We're gonna run it back as is. No sideboard in this matchup, of course. Double Sanctum is not that great, but we can play our entire hand, so I'm going to keep. The payoff here is if we draw a 7-drop, this hand is probably going to be insane, and if we don't, it's going to be terrible. So opponent plays Wooded Foothills to start. They did mulligan to 6. We draw Foundry Assembler. So play Sanctum, play Paradise Mantle. We have to do this in a very particular order, by the way. Otherwise, it just straight up doesn't work. Because if my opponent were to bolt a Frogmite before we could cast the other Frogmite, it would be a problem. We also cannot play Foundry Assembler on turn 1. So 2 Frogmite. Oh, no, we can. Never mind. Play Foundry Assembler. Pass the turn. 7 power on turn 1 is not bad. If my opponent has Lightning Bolt, they can Lightning Bolt. They do Shock. Okay, so they Lightning Bolt Foundry Assembler. Opponent plays a Forest and passes. We untap. We draw an Ornithopter. Play Sanctum. Equip Bonesaw. Go to combat. Attack for 5. Opponent has another Lightning Bolt. They kill Frogmite. Disappointing. Opponent goes down to 15. We play an Ornithopter. Equip it with Paradise Mantle. Pass the turn. Man, if we could just draw a Mirror Enforcer, or really if we could even just draw the other one, Barricade Breaker, both would be good here. We only have 5 artifacts. We draw another Ornithopter. So equip Frogmite. I probably should have equipped Ornithopter to just spread out the damage here. Go to combat. Attack for 3. Okay. I'm going to hold Ornithopter in hand, I think. Okay, they Lightning Bolt. And the only reason I'm going to do that is just in case my opponent has like an Anger of the Gods that they're holding on to. It did keep a hand with triple Lightning Bolt, which is unfortunate, because we had actually a pretty good opener. But triple relevant 1-mana removal, that kind of sucks. Flame Slash, okay. So we untap, we draw a Welding Jar, play out Welding Jar, holding on to Ornithopter for reasons previously mentioned. Pass the turn. My opponent has to start top decking stuff that isn't just removal. So they crack Verdant Catacombs for a Stomping Ground tapped. Bone Crusher Giant. Okay, that's not the worst thing here. Like, it's pretty bad, but it's not the end of the world. We just have to draw one of our 8/7 drops. Pass the turn. I was really worried about a Pyromancer there to draw them a bunch of cards. Okay, opponent draws Utopia Sprawl, which is another basically dead card. They hit us for 4, we go down to 16. We untap, Barricade Breaker. So play Ornithopter. That's 6 artifacts in total. So Barricade Breaker. We're going up to 7 artifacts. I'm only going to sack 1 Sanctum here. Which Sanctum is this one? The untapped one? No. Okay. I'm only going to sack 1 Sanctum because if they have instant speed removal as their last card in hand, I need to be able to cast Mirror Enforcer for 1. Play Mirror Enforcer for 0, sack Sanctum. Oh, I guess I have... Well, yeah, I could have Welding Jar through that, but we'll get another Mirror Enforcer. Mirror Enforcer resolves. The question is, do we equip Paradise Mantle or do we equip Bone Saw? And I think the answer is we equip Paradise Mantle to Ornithopter. Nice! Alright, pass the turn. We may have gotten there, because double Sanctum in this deck seems pretty good. If we win 2 matches, we will have won 2 more matches than I thought we would have. 4 mana, opponent plays Chandra. Down tick. Do it! Welding Jar. Okay. Opponent goes to combat. Does nothing. We untap. The only problem with this now is equipping Bonesaw to Ornithopter would be ideal, but we can't. So we equip Bonesaw to Barricade Breaker using Ornithopter. We can either attack our opponent for 12 and let them have 1 extra draw next turn, or we can attack Chandra for 8 and our opponent for 8. I think we do that. Go to combat, because we want to make sure Chandra dies. Hit our opponent, hit Chandra, hit Chandra. Because every extra draw my opponent gets could be in a Braid, and that would be a huge deal with as much mana as they have. So opponent blocks a Mirror Enforcer, or yeah, with Bone Crusher Giant. This block only makes sense if they have removal. Am I okay losing a Mirror Enforcer here? Yes, actually I am. I'm going to save Welding Jar, because if they have an Abrade, I want to be able to save the Barricade Breaker next turn. Play Bonesaw, pass the turn. Opponent untaps, they draw. Yeah, and had we actually drawn a 7-drop earlier than we did, we would be in a much better place. Do we care about that? I don't think we care about losing this Ornithopter. At this point, we are just trying to protect ourselves from an Abrade. Opponent plays a Bone Crusher Giant. Here we don't even have to attack with the Mirror Enforcer. I mean, maybe we should, because they still have to block Barricade Breaker no matter what. Okay, Welding Jar, I'm pretty sure locks this up. So play another Welding Jar, go to combat, attack for 12, opponent blocks 8 of it. We don't even have to regen. They take 4, they go to 2, and nothing they can draw short of like exile 2 artifacts, which I'm not sure a card like that exists in the modern metagame anywhere. I guess they could have a Fog. If they could play Chandra and hold up Fog, that would do it. That would potentially give them an out. We did it! We won 2 matches with this deck, holy crap! Holy crap, this deck has game. I'll see you guys in round 4. Alrighty, round 4, here we go. 2/7, 3/7 drops, which is actually not keepable. It is very close, but we got a mulligan. This is way better. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 0 drops, which means I can put back Tooth here, then play Frogmite. That's 5 artifacts, plus whatever we draw. Yeah, I think I gotta put back Tooth here. Yeah, I think with this deck, you basically only mulligan if you're holding more than 2 7 drops. My opponent... Shoot, where's that win? My opponent mulliganed to 6. Alright, we'll keep. Put back Tooth. We may have to wait 1 turn to combo off because I did mulligan. I'm not actually sure. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 artifacts, potentially a 6th artifact. I think I actually have to wait. Maybe keeping a hand with a bunch of 7 drops is correct. Even if there is 3 of them, that's weird. Because now my opponent's playing Luris. Oh no, they're playing Obosh. I thought my opponent revealed Luris. I wasn't paying enough attention. In that case, we might be okay. Alright, let's see what our opponent starts. They mulled to 5. And they start Soulscar Mage. We untap. We draw Memnite. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We gotta wait 1 turn. Yeah, that's right. I just F6 through my own first turn. What are you gonna do, opponent? What are you gonna do about that? Yeah. I am in the 2-1 bracket, and I didn't play a single permanent on turn 1. You better be scared. Because that was a long enough pause that could have been intentional. Not just a random F6 through your turn. You gotta play mind games when you're playing this deck. You gotta real scare them. You gotta get them really scared. Oh, man. My opponent apparently has lost connection to the game. Or is worried that I'm not playing, I guess? I don't know what this means. I think my opponent was, like, lagging out real bad. Okay, my opponent has rejoined the game. Okay, my opponent has returned. They hit us for 1, we go to 19. They play a Swift Spear, they have a land. We untap, draw Tormod Script. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, cool. Star Welding Jar. Play Tormod Script. Play Bauble. Play Memnite. Play Ornithopter. Play Ornithopter. Play Frogmite. Play Mirror Enforcer. Your move, opponent! The problem is that Soulscar Mage putting -1/-1 counters on things is actually a huge deal. I'm going to crack Bauble on their upkeep. I want to see what they're drawing. So my opponent has 3 cards in hand. Problem is only Mirror Enforcer can attack safely, and Burn is just a pile of kill spells for our creatures, so like, I think this is actually one of our worst matchups. Okay, opponent plays a Mountain. If they're just flooding out, though, and they don't have burn spells, there's a chance we can win. They put Obosh into their hand, and then they pass. We untap, we draw 2 cards, Barricade Breaker, and a Welding Jar. So play Welding Jar. Cast... Okay, no, we're not going to cast Barricade Breaker yet. We're going to go to combat and attack for 4. The only real way we get blown out here is if my opponent has a Gut Shot. Because then they can block, put a -1/-1 counter on it, kill Mirror Enforcer for basically free. And technically, if I was worried about my opponent having Gut Shot, I should have played Barricade Breaker pre-combat when I had priority and the mana to do so. Because if my opponent wanted to, they could Gut Shot like Memnite if they were worried about me drawing something else. My opponent appears to be disconnecting again. They keep messaging in chat. Just like a bunch of periods, I guess. Though I'm not really sure why, unless their network is like really bad. Like, I'm not ignoring my opponent. They're not asking me anything. It's just a bunch of periods and stuff. So like if they were like hey, did you mean to pass, blah, blah, this and that, I would respond to them and talk to them, but I don't know what's going on, and I don't know if I can help them at all. So I guess we'll see what happens. All right, my opponent has disconnected again. Alrighty, it looks like my opponent disconnected, so we are actually going to get a trophy with this deck. Well, we're not going to get a trophy. I mean, we're going to get a treasure chest. Excuse me. We did lose round one, but that is unfortunate because I think my opponent has a very good matchup against us. I mean, on a mulligan to 5, I think we may have had game 1 there, but my opponent probably would have beaten us pretty handily in game 2 and game 3. So, all right, moving on to round 5. See you there. Alrighty, round 5. Here we go. We do not want to play first. I can leave that over here, I guess. Okay. So, this looks like a keep. We only have one threat, though, so potentially this could turn out bad. If we can draw a Sanctum of Ugin here, we can play out a... Okay, we can't play out a Barricade Breaker, because my opponent is going to Inquisition and take an irrelevant 0-drop. Alright, my opponent is very concerned, because they're taking forever to resolve this Inquisition. I think if I were my opponent and I saw this, and I was playing a black-green deck, I would either take Welding Jar or I would take Mishra's Bauble. I think the rest of these probably don't matter. Unless they're playing some weird graveyard deck, then I could see an argument for Tormod's Crypt, but the other cards, they would not take the other card. Watch them be Smallpox and just be literally unbeatable with this hand. This is the one bad thing about going, picking the draw here, because like being on the play, it doesn't get any better necessarily. We could have played out our entire hand and then we probably would have just gotten Thought Seized for the Barricade Breaker instead. Opponent took Welding Jar. We draw another Barricade Breaker. So play Tormod's Crypt, Bonesaw, Mantle, Bauble. Pass the turn. Opponent knows one of the cards in our hand. And I am going to crack Bauble here because we need to draw more stuff. But there's no reason to do it, I guess, right away. I guess I could have to get information about what my opponent had in hand there. Okay, we get Thought Seized. They see 2 Barricade Breakers. I don't think we bring in Leyline in this matchup. Okay, so they look like they're traditional Jund, which might be a deck we cannot beat. They're drawing Scavenging Ooze. We untap. We draw Bauble. We draw Scale of Chisagora. So play Bauble. Pass the turn, because we still can't play Barricade Breaker. Opponent untaps. So my opponent has a Scavenging Ooze, I guess. Yeah, because they didn't fetch. They play Renin 6. They uptick, but hit no lands. Okay. So on my opponent's end step, flash in Scale. And I am going to crack Bauble, though this might be a mistake if we just draw like 2 7-drops we can't cast. The odds that we draw an artifact we can play is pretty high. Okay. We got Welding Jar and Briber's Purse, so play out Briber's Purse, play out Welding Jar, then cast Barricade Breaker. This is not the turn 1 Barricade Breaker we'd hoped for. Opponent is drawing another Scavenging Ooze. I mean, at least we have a Welding Jar to protect us from like an Assassin's Trophy, or multiple bolts, or like a big Tarmogoyf blocker or something. Okay, opponent activates Nurturing Peatland to draw a card. So they're staying on 2 mana here. But this means they have to uptick Renin 6 and probably replay Nurturing Peatland. I don't know if they have another land or not, but we can leave up Tormod's Crypt next turn to stop them from doing that again. We untap. I'd like to draw Mirror Enforcers now, just kind of like running Mirror Enforcers would be good. Sanctum of Ugin's okay. That's a card we can leave in hand that my opponent can't make us... Well, we probably should play it out because... at the bare minimum, we can equip Bonesaw and turn this into a true 2-turn clock. And this way, if we do draw a 7-drop and play it, we can get another 7-drop immediately. So hit our opponent down to 7. Next turn, my opponent will be able to play a Scavenging Ooze, at least a block. And we don't have removal, so... Opponent plays Bloodstain Mire, so they're going to take damage off of Bloodstain. They fetch up a basic Swamp. They play Liliana. Liliana can force us to sack, which does get around Welding Jar. We don't have anything with haste, so we kind of just need to draw multiple large creatures. Yeah, we can't do anything about that, so we have to let that happen. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Okay, I am going to crack Tormod's Crypt here. Because if we... And the ideal would be we draw a Barricade Breaker and then get a Mirror Enforcer, I think, off of Sanctum. We untap. We draw a Barricade Breaker. So I think in the ideal scenario right now. Play Barricade Breaker. Sack Sanctum. Get Mirror Enforcer. Barricade Breaker resolves. Play Mirror Enforcer. And now we need to top deck either a Tooth of Chisgora or a another Sanctum of Ugin, I think. My opponent has to not take damage from their mana base. So they down-tick Ren and 6, probably have a Lightning Bolt here. We will regenerate any... Like, so, like, in the best case scenario, my opponent has a Lightning Bolt, and then they have, like, an Assassin's Trophy for the Barricade Breaker. So we are going to regen here. Man, I'm glad we're not playing with, like, retro rules where tapped artifacts didn't work. That may have only been for static artifacts, though, because it was way before my time playing Magic. Opponent discards a Blood Crypt. Are very low on life. They play a Scavenging Ooze, and they cannot activate Nurturing Peatland. So if we draw something that can equip Bonesaw, or if we draw a Tooth of Chisgora, my opponent dies. We draw Sanctum. So play Sanctum, equip Bonesaw, and that's the game! Oh, we just won a game versus Jund! And it was not in the ideal circumstances, either. Oh, yeah. Wow. So, versus Jund... don't think we bring in Leyline Void. I don't think Gutshot matters. Neither does Marrow Shards. Leyline of Sanctity might, but it does kind of disrupt the ideal hand here. It just shuts off all of their hand hate, which is maybe something we want to do. And there is an argument here to be playing a Wastes for the Assassin's Trophy. The question is, what do I take out for the Wastes? It might be Paradise Mantle. So I think I'm going to drop a Paradise Mantle for the Wastes. We could bring in Leyline, I just don't know what I would go down for it. So, opponent gets to pick whether they want to go first or second. They should choose to go first. And this does look like a pretty good hand, so we are going to keep. It is unfortunate if my opponent does keep 1 mana removal, they can keep us off of Affinity. So we're getting Thoughtseized. Opponent probably takes Barricade Breaker here, though... Honestly, any of the creatures or Frogmite would be fine as far as a take. Opponent takes Barricade Breaker. That's reasonable. That was the payoff. So we draw Tooth. Play Memnite. Briber's Purse. Thopter. Crypt. Frogmite. And we're going to leave Tooth in hand, kind of faking that maybe I drew a 7-drop and just can't play it. Because this has Flash, and because my opponent is still playing Hand Hate, they may just try and Thoughtseize us again, in which case they get no value and just shock themselves. They play Blood Crypt into a Croxa. Perfect. Flash in Tooth of Chisgoria? Chisgoria? I just realized I've been pronouncing that terribly wrong. Alright. We lose 3 life. We untap. We draw a Bauble. Play out a Bauble. Go to combat. Attack. Tooth up the Thopter. Hit our opponent for 4, they go to 12. Okay, pass the turn. On their upkeep, we're going to Bauble and see what they're drawing. It's a Black Cleave Cliffs. Alright, no reason to really, I guess we could hold up Tormod's Crypt. I was going to say I should probably just F6, but... So my opponent plays Black Cleave Cliffs, they play Seasoned Pyromancer. Let's see what they discard. They discard Nurturing Peatland and Bloodbraid Elf. They get a token. Okay, I would like the Toughness increase artifact and then like a Mirror Enforcer. Okay, we get a Memnite, which is not what I asked for, and another Tormod's Crypt. So, play Tormod's Crypt. Go to combat. Man, do we just attack for 1? I don't want to go down too far on our artifact count. And I am probably cracking a Crypt next turn. I think I'm just going to attack for 1. So my opponent does not block, because they can't. We hit them for 1 in the air, they go to 11. And then we cast Memnite. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play Verdant Catacombs. They crack Verdant Catacombs. Oh shoot, I needed a Tormod script right there. Because now they'll be able to play Kroxa. Okay, they cast Bloodbraid Elf instead. Getting a Renin 6. Okay. They're going to kill a Memnite. We're going to exile their grave. So we need to draw big, gigantic artifact payoffs. Opponent attacks us for 3. We're not going to trade. We untap. We draw Bonesaw, which doesn't do anything. Go to combat. Attack with Ornithopter at our opponent for 1. Because attacking Renin 6 just feels bad. Well, actually... Okay, attack Renin 6. Attack Renin 6. And here we get to choose what to use Tooth on. My opponent only has 2 cards left in hand, so... Okay. In that scenario, we just Tooth the Ornithopter. Problem now is we're in really bad top deck mode. Play Bonesaw. And we're not like old builds of Affinity decks where you had like Thoughtcast or like some crazy way to recoup card advantage. We don't have Ink Moth, Blink Moth, and Cranial Plating or anything like that, so we can't just like make a really big hard-hitting Ornithopter. So we kind of want to draw a... we kind of want to draw one of our lands, suit up an Ornithopter with a Bonesaw, and then draw like a 7-drop. Okay, we get an Ornithopter, so go to combat. Attack our opponent for 1. Opponent has a Fatal Push. Okay. Then we play an Ornithopter. Pass the turn. Downtick Liliana because double Ornithopter. I've never seen such a threatening Ornithopter before in my life. Although, I mean, like... It's still correct, it's just weird. It's a weird situation for our opponent to have to be in. Okay, we untap, we draw another Tooth. So we can play out the Tooth, attack our opponent for 2, or we can attack Liliana, but we can't race. So, I will see you all in Game 3 of Round 5. I still don't think we actually make any adjustments here. Alrighty, I would like to play first. Although that was incorrect, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We are 1 off of playing out Mirror Enforcer. But this is actually okay, as long as my opponent doesn't start Thoughtseize, which there's a pretty high chance of them doing. We do get to play a Briber's Purse with 1 counter on it, meaning that we could stop our opponent from doing a critical block, potentially. So, play out Briber's Purse, Ornithopter, Memnite, Bauble, Scale, pass the turn, see what our opponent does. They start Blackcleave Cliffs, probably into a Thoughtseize, because they know our last card in hand has got to be like a 7-drop. Okay, they're going to Fatal Push. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. I am going to crack Bauble here. They're drawing a Lightning Bolt. We draw another Bauble and an Ornithopter. So play Ornithopter, play Bauble. This costs 2 and we can't play it. Alright, pass the turn. So my opponent draws a Lightning Bolt here. They may just bolt immediately and keep us off of 7 artifacts. Which would be the first opponent, I think, that understands that that's what we're trying to do, and that's why we're struggling so hard. Okay, they play a Tarmogoyf. I am going to crack Bauble again. They're drawing another Lightning Bolt. Okay, I don't actually think they're beatable at this point. Play Bauble. Play Tooth. Float mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mirror Enforcer. We will get Barricade Breaker. We have no choice on what we tap because we have to tap everything. Pass the turn. But my opponent has 2 lightning bolts now, and if they have a second red source, they could just bolt down Barricade Breaker. They play Tarmogoyf. So we untap. We draw a Memnite. Play out a Memnite. If we attack with Mirror Enforcer and Barricade Breaker, we can't kill Tarmogoyf if they double block. And that has to attack, so we're going to attack like this. And based on how our opponent blocks is how we're going to activate our abilities here. They should, I think, double block Barricade Breaker and just lose a Tarmogoyf, because it increases the size of their other Tarmogoyf. Yeah. Okay. So then we tooth our Enforcer. Hit them down to 14, pass the turn. Bobble them on our upkeep. They're holding 2 lightning bolts, though, and I just don't think we can beat that. I'm drawing a Bloodstained Mire. Okay. They play Bloodstained Mire. Yeah, this deck needs... if it had some way to reload, I think it would be absolutely crazy. Like, if we had a way to play, like, Mystic Forge or something like that. Just something absolutely absurd, right? I think this deck would be pretty close to unbeatable, because you just play, like, your entire deck on turn whatever. But unfortunately, all of our artifacts are only to cheat out stuff with Affinity, i.e. Enforcer, and stuff with Improvise, which is Barricade Breaker and Foundry Denizen, is it? I don't remember. So opponent cracks Bloodstained Mire, and we would have to play more lands for the Mystic Forge thing to work, and that would completely negate all of our speed. There might be a midpoint. I just don't know what it would be. 3 mana. Opponent plays Plague Engineer, naming Construct, I guess. Creature with Death Touch is pretty good versus us as well. So they name Construct. And now they're at a point where their 1-for-1s are just going to be better than anything we can do. If we top deck a Sanctum of Ugin, we can prevent Plague Engineer from blocking and sneak in some damage. We get some Frogmites. Those don't really help here. We can still sneak in 1 damage here while they're tapped out with Tooth. Hit them down to 12. But my opponent has 2 Lightning Bolts, so they can just answer the Frogmites. There's no reason for them to attack with Plague Engineer, and even if they did, we probably wouldn't block. If we top deck Sanctum into another Breaker, I think that's the only way we can kind of stay afloat. Scooze is difficult for us to answer. Opponent plays a Blood Crypt tapped, and their last 2 cards are Lightning Bolt. They cannot activate Scavenging Ooze. We draw a Foundry Assembler. Let me think about this. I don't think it matters. I think we're still toast here. But I would need to keep back basically all of our activated abilities and artifacts to play this Assembler, which would just die to Bolt anyway. Attacking could be stronger. They would block with Tarmogoyf here. There is an instant to the grave, so Bolt would not matter as much. We could increase the toughness of Mirror Enforcer and then increase the attack of one of the Thopters. Because whatever they block with Scavenging Ooze and whatever they, that's going to die. This has Death Touch, so they may actually just put that on Enforcer and then it doesn't matter. So I guess in that case we play out Foundry Assembler. Let's attack them in the air for 1, see if they're willing to use a Lightning Bolt. So, Tooth up the Thopter. I mean, if they're disciplined, they'll just hold up Bolt and kill Assembler, but I don't think it matters. I think we've lost. Jund seems like a very hard deck for this deck to beat. Without, a completely monstrous opening hand. So play Foundry Foundry Assembler. Why do I keep saying stuff that this is not? Pass the turn. Okay, opponent bolts Assembler. They untap. They're holding Bolt 1 unknown. But they can start growing the Ooze. They play Bloodbraid. They cascade into Seasoned Pyromancer, which forces them to discard Bolt, but that's pretty good. They discard Lightning Bolt, they draw 2 cards, and they get a 3-2 with haste. We'd basically have to have our opponent make some really bad attacks, and I don't think they're going to do that. So we don't block, we take 7, we go to 9. Opponent plays a land tapped. We untap and draw another Frogmite. Play Frogmite. Go to combat, attack them for 1 in the air. Opponent goes to 10, pass the turn. They play a Plague Engineer they can name Frog. Yeah, second Plague Engineer I think is done. Absolutely seals the deal, yeah. Okay. They attack us for 2 with Death Touch. I don't think it's worth double blocking Frogmites, maybe? Yeah, we'll just take 2. Alright, we'll scoop it up. Let's go ahead and open our treasure chest, and I'll talk about the deck briefly. 5 play points, Glacial Fortress, and Kodama of the South Tree. Alright. You know what? I think I'm going to do this as a budget deck, because this deck actually qualifies as budget, at least right now. And I think with the right matchups, you can go 3-2, or you can go 4-1. I doubt anyone will be lucky enough to 5-0 with this, but I think it's good enough. I don't know if playing more lands would be better than playing no lands. Foundry Assembler felt kind of mediocre. It doesn't turn on the Sanctum of Ugin play, but it's the only other card with like Improvise that's colorless that's actually worth running. I looked up in between games a few different cards I thought might work, but really I think this card is set up about it. I think this deck is set up about as good as it can be. I think Leyline of Punishment in the sideboard rather than Leyline of Sanctity is probably the way to go. We do get wrecked by Hand Hate, but Leyline of Sanctity has the same effect as getting hit with multiple pieces of Hand Hate, so I just don't think that's good. I'm not sure about Gutshot and Marrow Shards either, but I also don't know what the sideboard for this deck would look like. I think Leyline of the Void is fine. Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined, and remember you can follow me on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, though the last few have been earlier. And hope to see you guys in the next video. I want you to know that you're all wonderful human beings, and I appreciate your viewership. Bye!